Oh, wow. That's extremely late. Okay, let's start. Okay. So, wow, a lot of people. I better behave myself. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Can please everyone go out and close the door? Okay. This is how it works when you have Zoom and you're teaching from your house. Okay. So let's start with the following question. We're starting with a dilemma to do with the situation. Firstly, did everybody realize that the religious community has been hit the hardest? Did everybody realize that?
Sure.
Yes. Yeah?
Yeah.
My question is, why do you think the religious community was hit the hardest? I mean, and this is not a light question. This is a serious question, because if you think about it, I mean, we're talking about people dying. We're not talking here about just being locked at home. For us, it seems like seemingly not as serious. People, we're at home. We're kind of locked at home, everyone. But there is people out there that unfortunately are suffering and are in tremendous bad situation. So I was just wondering if anyone here thinks or has any thoughts, why do we think that this happened?
Because they're growing to secret minions.
Okay, who gave that one?
Rivka,
secret minions. Okay, anyone else?
I think there's a culture of, in some communities, of just disobeying authority that's not religious authority.
Okay.
Yep.
Right.
Lots of children.
Yeah, so this is very good, Ash. Disobeying orders because it's not a halachic authority. It's not a rabbinic authority. Anyone else? Any other suggestions?
Because Judaism is based on congregating.
Okay, right. That's a practical reason, right? That Jews we have minyanim, we have shul, we go to daven together, we have weddings, many more weddings. I mean, that's another one. Also non-religious people have weddings. I guess that's not the best one. What else? Any other thoughts?
They have a munah that everything's just going to be okay, that Hashem's just going to sort them out.
Okay, so they believe that they're above, everything will be okay with them because they're above the law, and a law also of physics and science. Riv, you're on mute, so I can't hear you.
sorry, I was just said exactly what was said, but I think they just think that it won't happen to them because Hashem will look after them and they're above biology.
Right.
You mentioned science before. I think it's more than just science. It's also keeping up with current events, and not really feeling anything until it affects you directly or within your community. Often by which it can be too late in a case like this.
In a case like this, it's quite late. Right. Okay. So those are all different ideas that are out there. So I want to share with you the following thought that I had, and anyone is more than welcome to interfere in the middle and ask questions. And I want to try and gain something. Hello, and gain something out of it as well. Wait, just one second. Okay, I'm with you. So the following idea: when we talk about the religious community, and when we talk the Haredi community, the Haredi community obviously is people that believe, as Riv and Josh pointed out, they believe that there will be okay, and that is because they're religious. And what does religious mean? In the mind of a religious person, if he's wearing a black yarmulke like mine, so he believes that he's working for God, and therefore God will look after us and protect us, and nothing will go wrong. That's the mindset we have. We have a mindset of, well, I go to shul and I'll be okay. You know, I just go to shul and everything will be fine. And yeshivas have to remain open because God needs us to learn Torah. God needs us to keep the mitzvos. You know, He needs us as the agents of God, and therefore we'll be protected. That's one mindset that exists out there. And I think this experience kind of made us realize that God doesn't need all that. God, when I say the religious communities gotten hit the hardest, I was referring to people sick and people dying. That's true. But there's another element that got hit very hard, and that is on the day-to-day life for religious people. This has made a massive difference because you can't go to shul anymore. You can't learn anymore with anyone inside shul. You're kind of stuck at home, and that's a serious thing, right? That's pretty serious. So the question is, why is that? Why is that? So accept the fact that everyone, right? Obviously, physically, we gave a bunch of reasons. We say to congregate and come together, and they think God is going to protect him. But why is actually God doing this is a question that no one can answer. But we could try and take an idea out of it. And I think the following idea is very important to take out of it. And that is, we have to be more humble about what we think God needs from us. When people think God needs us, and I'm referring not only to the religious community, I'm referring to any one of us. When we think God needs us, we have to realize God does not need us to serve him. God doesn't need us to serve him because he just showed us by closing our shuls and closing the yeshivas and closing everything. He doesn't need us. He doesn't need us to serve him. What we are realizing is a tremendous thing. God wants more than that. And there's one thing that I think by us being at home, everyone is doing much better right now. There's one area that guaranteed every single one that's joined this year is doing much better at. Anyone want to guess what that thing is? There's one prohibition that we're all doing 1,000,000 times better at.
Okay.
Anyone? So usually we speak slander sometimes, not always, but sometimes we speak slander. Right now, there's not a lot of slander to be spoken, as we refer to it as Lashon Hara. There's not a lot of Lashon Hara being spoken right now, if you think about it. Because if I want to say anything about Emma, there's nothing really to say. She's been at home already for a long time. And if I want to say anything about Sean, the only thing I could say is that he's been joining my shir. There's not a lot to say. What else have you been doing? No one has been doing anything. Everyone is stuck at home, and there's nothing really happening. You could put a different background riff, but we still all know that you're at home. Because there's nothing really happening. There's nothing really happening. So we're everyone is not speaking slander. There's nothing to really speak about. No one went to a wedding and saw someone misbehave. No one was at the Purim function you could still talk about, but that's already becoming old news. You know, there's nothing really new happening. So you could talk, I was drunk on Purim. You saw how he behaved. He looked like a Meshikana, right? But that's already old news. It's not relevant anymore after, we're already 2 weeks away from that. We're almost in Pesach. Say tonight there won't be any family politics or discussions or slander about family. You know why? Because we won't be around our families. Everyone will be with their immediate family, uncles, cousins, anyone you could say, you saw how he behaved at the Seder and how he wasn't appreciative and he didn't say thank you and he didn't eat the food or whatever. So when a person does that, right, that's not happening. So there's one thing that's been everyone, I think, is doing much better at, and that is slander. Anyone here disagree on that or has any thought about it? No. Okay, good. So the idea of not speaking slander is, I think, a wake-up call for us, because we walked out of our shuls, we left our there's no weddings. Weddings got pushed off. And I think there's a big message there that, you know, we have to watch how we speak about people and watch what we say. It can't be that when we come together, it comes with this concept of us speaking badly about people. So for me, it's a great insight for myself. And, you know,
I can't hear. Okay, I'm connecting.
Rabbi, wait up a second. It's not working. Just wait a second. We can't hear you.
oh no, Izzy, what's going on?
Okay, yep, you're
You
back.
can't hear me.
We lost you for 30 seconds.
Izzy can't hear me. Can't hear me. Can you hear me better now? Yes? Is it working better? Okay, good.
Yes, Rabbi.
Okay. So I think the idea of slander is a tremendous insight, and there still is a little bit, but it's kind of getting eradicated and guaranteed with social media to its Pesach mode, then we even gonna have even less slander because there won't even be Zoom shiurim for rabbis to be late or things like that. So it's really, you're gonna be at your Seder, just you and your family, and there will really, the amount of slander is gonna even go down more. So I think the first message that I would try and take, I'm not something we should be very aware of and try and be careful. That's the thought I was thinking. And
What did you do now, like?
Rabbi, you're cutting in and out.
when's the last time a shuls were closed around the world? Not many times. So I think it's kind of hitting hard in our community for us to wake up to this reality that we're not that perfect the way we think we are. And it's time for us to wake up and realize that there's a reality out there, and that is that there's a concept called slander, and we should be more careful about it. That's the first thought I wanted to share with everyone. Okay, make sense? Now I got the following question that I wanted to see what people think about. Again, it's a little bit under the, because I have to, for some reason, try and keep my sheer controversial. I'm not interested if I don't keep it controversial for some reason. Everyone else could do it without being controversial, but I have to be controversial. So the following question, someone called me with the following question. They asked me, could they go for Seder to their parents when the parents are not scared of the corona? They want to go to their parents are not scared of it, and they want to go to their parents. You can type the answer if you what you're thinking, Emma. You don't have to open your mic. But what do you think about that? Should you go to your parents when your parents are not scared of the corona? You married people. No. I'm getting 2 no's so far. Anyone saying yes? Don't go. Maybe. No, they should not go. Okay. It depends. Okay, challenging my English there. How old are the parents? Benji Feynman, how old are the parents? I'll tell you, it's quite interesting. How old are the parents? I know someone that's 55 in the Melbourne community whoa, you can't write me so many messages at once. It takes me time to read. Okay, the following idea is that in the community, there's someone that actually is 55 55 and is, can you hear me? Yeah, 55 and he's unfortunately on a respirator machine. No medical conditions beforehand as far as I know. So this could be a deadly virus, even to someone in the age of 55, Benji Feynman. So I don't think age should be a consideration. Yes, I will send his Hebrew name. Then no. Okay, very good. Now, the only problem is that the guy that called me says to me the following: my wife is looking for excuses not to go to my parents. So what do you say then? Still no. Meaning he thinks that his wife really doesn't mind going, but she doesn't want to go to his parents. And if his parents are having anyways other kids over. So why should he not go? Well, how do you explain to a person, this is my question, how do you explain to a person that he should not go, even though other siblings will be there? And if, okay, very good, very good. Because there's other people there, exactly right. And that was quite interesting. I found it quite fascinating that I had to, this happened this afternoon, by the way. I had to explain to him that it's not about your wife, how, if she wants to go to your parents, doesn't want you to go to her parents. You have to understand that around the world, this has been taken very seriously, which means if we stop minyanim and we're davening each one individually, and everything is closed, and businesses are doing Seder on your own is definitely something you should be doing. You should be doing Seder on your own with no one, just with immediate family, and not go to a Seder with your parents, even though this means your parents might get upset because they are not that concerned about this virus. So everyone, based on what you answered, I assume everyone agrees with me. But here's the question. The next question I got was, what about Zoom? Seder on Zoom. Did everyone hear this question already? Yeah. Okay. Before you even give your answer, let me just make the question a little bit more emotional. There's a grandmother, a widow, and she's going to be by herself this year on Seder, and she's wondering, could she be on Zoom with the family? What's your thoughts on that? From a religious perspective, Benji Feynman, not from your mindset, but rather a religious perspective. Brad, obviously, no. Shu, did you go to Or Sameach or to Aish? Sounds like you went to Or Sameach. Tali Singer,
Rabbi,
no.
you know,
Wow.
halakhically no, but for someone that's by themselves, a widow
I
that's
can't
by
hear. Wait,
themselves,
just 1 second.
why wouldn't you?
Yeah, speak again. I can't hear you. Yes. Go.
Halakhically no. Halakhically no,
Now
you
I can
can't.
hear you. No, I can't. Okay, try again.
Okay.
Go again. Go again.
Okay, halakhically you can't be on Zoom because it's Yontif. You can't. But for someone that's living by themselves and they're not a religious Jew, and it's just going to make them feel more socially included and part of a community or family, then I think that it should be something that you should consider. I mean, these people are by themselves 24/7 and they're sitting at home with no one to talk to, maybe not even
But Chelsea, once you got rid of the halacha, then I don't think it's a question anymore. Then you're absolutely right. They should be on Zoom because I'm asking it only from a halacha's perspective.
From a halakhic perspective, of course you can't.
Wow. Okay. Where did you go? Did you go to Neve by any chance? You're quite fanatic there. Just kidding. Just kidding. So it's
A
interesting.
lot enough.
I would also say you can't. Well, I didn't hear it. Someone want to say something?
I'd love to know if Riv's question is relevant. Like, is that something you take into account? I'd be really interested to hear.
What was Riv's question? I didn't see it. She typed it?
Riv asked, she said, is this lady someone that normally keeps Chag? Is that something that can be taken into account here or not?
Well, I mean, if someone usually doesn't keep Shabbos and he comes and asks me a question about Shabbos and on a halacha question on Shabbos, so I could I answer them, oh, you don't keep Shabbos, therefore it's permitted for you, or I have to tell them, sorry, it's still forbidden, even though you usually know. You agree with that?
Yeah, but I'm sure you can find a loophole as to how it could occur. Meaning, should we be finding loopholes for this person to feel socially included?
Right, that's the question.
What about the concept of pikuach nefesh?
Oh, great point. Great point. So, what's the pikuach nefesh? Good point. What's the pikuach nefesh?
That you can break Ragel Yontif to save a life.
Right. So, how would you save a life by having it on Zoom?
Mental health.
Mental health. So definitely mental health comes into the consideration. Exactly right. So there's an interesting psak given by the rabbi of Gateshead. Used to be the rabbi of Gateshead. Urge that you're saving. Okay, you can argue that you're saving her. Okay, I hear that. Now you're starting to be a little bit more lenient there. That's good. So the rabbi, his name is Rav Zimmerman from Gateshead, and he said the following thing. Now, again, this is very controversial. And he said that under extreme circumstance, then it would be permitted if it's on in advance under extreme circumstance. Now, what do we define as extreme circumstance? That's where it becomes very controversial. What do we define as extreme circumstance? Do we define extreme circumstance as a situation where a person is gonna, mental health, as Riv pointed out, or as an extreme circumstance, a widow sitting by herself and is gonna struggle? That's okay. That already. Hello. Each one will have to ask themselves their own question to their own rabbi. What do you do under their circumstance? But there is a circumstance where it would be permitted to have Zoom if it was put on in advance, even though halachically, usually we do not allow these things. But in an extreme circumstance, we would allow this thing, and each one has to ask their own question, when does this apply? Rabbi, what was the question? Just a second. Okay, so why would it normally change under this circumstance? Why would it normally change under this circumstances? Because you're doing it in advance. We're not talking about making the call on Shabbos. Definitely you wouldn't be allowed to go on Zoom on Shabbos. Right? So on Shabbos itself, you would not be allowed to go on to Zoom. But if it's before, you put it on before in advance and you don't touch it on Shabbos, there would be no permission to touch it on Yom Tov. You would be able to run the Seder under that circumstance. But let's say it's older parents that are sitting together. They have each other. They just want to see the grandchildren singing Manishtana. They want to watch Riv singing Manishtana. That's not a good enough reason. Even though that you want that, that's not good enough. Your grandparents cannot have Zoom just because they want to participate in the grandchildren's Manishtana. It has to be a circumstance where it's going to be challenging. You hear that, Chelsea? Yeah? It can't be just randomly. So, it has to be a real challenging circumstance that we allow such a thing. But again, each one has to ask the question on their particular case, and you can't come out just on your own to such a ruling. Rather, you have to approach it in separately. So that's the answer in regards to that question. Okay, makes sense? Now, I know people sent questions. I can't see the chats properly. Can someone help me out here? I'm working on my high-tech skills here. Emma, what were you asking?
I was asking, is it better that someone okay, like this is an extreme circumstance, but like just say you have someone who's home by themselves, and either they will fulfill the mitzvot of being part of the Pesach Seder and telling the Pesach story if they're on Zoom, or they won't do anything if they're not on Zoom. Like, what is a better situation?
Wow, that's a great one. So if you know someone that why? Because they don't know how to do it, or just they couldn't be bothered?
Like maybe they don't, just say they don't know how to do it, or yeah, they've never.
Right, they're not really involved in Judaism. They don't have an understanding of it, and they need to participate. So I would assume under that circumstance, that would be an extreme circumstance, which would allow you to, again, if you put it on before Shabbos in advance, and you have it on before Shabbos, that would probably be a circumstance where it would be permitted. And again, it's not because just any year, it's particularly under a circumstance where you don't have other options of inviting them over. Meaning, if you would have the option of inviting them over and they say, no, I decline, you say, okay, what about Zoom? That's not an option. It's because the circumstance that you can't have them over. There's no other solution to try and get them involved. This is the only way, and they're not going to do it without. And they want to do it, but they need some encouragement towards it. So then that, I believe that would be an extreme circumstance, which would allow you to use Zoom. Make sense?
How do you turn off the Zoom now?
Well, you let the battery run out. You ever heard of that?
Zoom uses up a lot of computer battery.
Yeah.
Rabbi Channan,
Yes.
you know how you said that it's a bit problematic if you turn it on before Chag and then let it run out or whatever. Isn't that the same principle that we apply to like leaving an oven on or leaving like a cholent pot on or something like that? That's permissible?
Right. So, yeah, so you can do, that's why it's not called breaking Shabbos directly, but we don't allow to leave on the TV, example, on Shabbos, right, to watch the soccer. I mean, there's no more soccer, but when there was, back in the days when people would play soccer, so, or any sport, before the Corona days. So you were allowed to have you weren't allowed to turn on and have it, to watch it through TV. You couldn't turn on the TV before, so the same applies to Zoom. But you're right, you're not actually breaking Shabbos, and that's why there is a way of permitting it, because you're not actually breaking Yom Tov by doing it. But again, it has to be an extreme circumstance, not under any circumstance, because otherwise you're breaking the spirit of the Chag and the spirit of the Seder. So you can't have it under normal circumstances. I'll share with you a crazy story that happened to me. I had two boys that came to my house for a Shabbos meal years ago when I was living in Sydney. Believe it or not, I was a rabbi of community before I started working with students. And yeah, okay. Anyway, so what happened was the guys came to my house, and they were both from religious families, but they left the religion, unfortunately, and they started they were partying away, living life, as we say. Anyways, so what happened was they came to my Shabbos table, and the World Cup was on. Not the last one, the one before. And one of them turned around and said to me, Rabbi, what's the problem if I get a non-Jew before Shabbos by hinting to him to turn on the TV? This is all before Shabbos, with a non-Jew, with hinting and everything, to turn on the TV that I can watch it, the World Cup. Tell me, which prohibition of Shabbos am I breaking if I do that? And I said, well, it's not he said, no, Rabbi, don't give me all this mussar. Don't give me your ideas, your spiritual ideas about Shabbos. Tell me, what's the prohibition of turning on the TV by a non-Jew with hinting to him before Shabbos to do so? So I was kind of stuck, believe it or not. I was stumped. It happens. But so what happened was I was sitting there, and his friend turns around and says, the first time I broke Shabbos was like this. The first time I broke Shabbos was exactly like this. I broke Shabbos by me watching TV turned on by someone else and not me, myself turning it on. That's what he said. And I asked him, and after that was the end of the discussion. The guy was kind of taken back. Wow, he didn't have what to say. It's amazing that Emma allows her brother to listen. That's amazing. Anyways, great to see you. He's peeking in. Okay, good. So then what happened was is following. I thought about it for a while and I realized the following idea. In order for someone to appreciate the Shabbos, in order for someone to really take advantage of the Seder that's coming on and Shabbos and that, what you have to do is you have to make Shabbos different than any other day. Meaning like just like any other day. And the only thing is that it restricts you and doesn't allow you to do other things. Example, you can't go with your friends. You're kind of stuck at home. You can't get onto your phone. You can't engage with anyone. Then Shabbos becomes a very different. But when Shabbos, you change the spirit of Shabbos. You get dressed for Shabbos. You prepare a nice lunch at home and a nice dinner. And you make it a nice experience, and you have a book to read or whatever. You figure out, you make Shabbos special. There's a book you really want to read. So you say, you know what, I'll keep this for Shabbos. If someone turns Shabbos into something else and gives it the spirit of Shabbos, then Shabbos is something that has a flavor and it can enjoy. Now, if you grew up religious your whole life and you never turned on a switch on Shabbos and you always kept Shabbos, you're not going to break Shabbos so easily. The only way you're going to break Shabbos is if first you turn the Shabbos into every other day, and then you slowly turn it into every other day till it becomes quite annoying to keep it, and then you won't keep it. So this guy came from a religious background, and Shabbos obviously was a day he's not going to break. He's not going to turn on a switch on Shabbos because he grew up religious his whole life. So you know what he did? First, he didn't do anything. He just watched movies, which means he watched sports or whatever. He got rid of the spirit of Shabbos. Once he got rid of the spirit of Shabbos, it was very easy for him, or much easier for him, to break the actual Shabbos by switching on a light and things like that. So when he turned around to his friend and said, the first time I broke Shabbos was by me watching television through someone else turning it on, I understood that to mean he couldn't break Shabbos any other way, rather by first getting rid of the spirit of the Shabbos. And that's, I think, what we have to realize when we ask the question about Zoom in regards to the Seder. We have to understand we want to keep the Seder with the spirit of a Yom Tov, that it's a special night. It's a night where there's no technology and there's nothing else happening. And that's why we're very not quick to say, okay, just put Zoom, make it a whole, as we say in Hebrew, chagiga and mesiba and kol yeh beseder. No, it's not how it works. It's meant to be a Seder night, and it's meant to be that it has a spirit to it. Now, under extreme circumstance, we can allow to do it because you're not getting rid of the spirit of Yom Tov. Rather, you're understanding that there's an extreme situation going on here, which we have to deal with. So that's the mindset that a person has to approach this question. Make sense? Okay, do I still have people involved here?
Can I ask a question, Rav?
Yes, go for it.
Okay, so if you're saying that under like extreme circumstances you're going to allow it, then does that then set a precedent, like after this is all over, if someone's in like a socially isolated position for whatever reason, like hospital or distance or whatever, that then like you would then allow that?
Well, I would never allow it, meaning I wouldn't have the broad enough shoulders to allow such a thing. That's why I start off with saying there's a bigger rabbi, which is he was the gated rabbi, much more knowledgeable, older than me, much more of a and so on. So if he allows, he's the one that said that under extreme circumstances it's permitted. I would never say that, because who am I to decide such a decision? So such a question does go to a higher authority, and like we said, everyone under particular situation has to put in the question, but it is a precedent that's a dangerous precedent, and that's why I wouldn't have the broad shoulders to do it. That's why you need a greater rabbi, a much more greater scholar to come and say, or a scholar. When I say a greater one, sounds like I'm saying I'm one. Okay, I get it. Yeah, so a scholar to come and say that this is permitted under the circumstance. But you're right, it is a precedent that's very tricky to make. Yeah.
But do you think like it has the future of like impacting the way that people begin to practice like modern orthodoxy? Like eventually it could change?
I don't think so. I think that's something we try to be careful with, to not allow that to happen. And that's why it's such an interesting thing that he allowed it, because obviously, as you see, this immediately starts changing the way people are thinking and saying, wait a second, if it's permitted once, then obviously it should change the way we think about things. And that's something that we are aware of and we try to keep as far as possible from.
Would
Make
you
sense?
be able to record a Seder on Zoom?
I think that would be already a stretch. I think that would be, I don't see a purpose in that, and that would take away from the spirit of the Chag, obviously. So once there's no purpose, then there's no heter. Once there's no purpose, there's no permission to do that, right? There is a recording, people that were once, there's a few stories where people recorded a Yom Kippur ceremony by leaving a tape near the Chazan before. But that was done without people knowing, and it's actually a problem. Then there's a question, could you hear that tape after? But yeah, it's not a simple, we do not permit that under normal under any circumstance, seemingly, because there's no purpose to the recording. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Now I just want to add something, and we'll try and end off on a positive note. Okay. Now, please, if anyone can share before I share my thing about, is there anything positive that's been coming out of these last few days? Anything positive you got out of this last few days, except Zoom shiurim? Go, Izzy.
Family time.
Family time. Amazing.
I've become more grateful for things that I can't have right now.
Okay, great. Anyone else? Something positive?
Yes. I get to see my Sydney friends every day.
Ooh, wow. That's special. Sean.
So special.
I get to sleep later in the morning.
Okay.
It's always exciting.
Sleeping is always something Sean appreciates.
Always.
Okay, anything else? Riv, I'm sure you got something positive out of this. Ash, something positive?
Yeah, I'm having a bit of a sleep. Family dinners, definitely family dinners. Normally everyone's running around every night, but we're all together. We all eat together, which is unusual.
Okay, great. Anyone else?
Cooking a lot.
And is that positive?
Yeah, because I get to cook with my sisters, and like, I don't know, like Ash said, like we all sit down for dinner together and we usually don't, and it's really good family time.
Amazing. Anyone else? Adam Litz, all the way from Sydney.
What's up, Rav? I got to come back to Melbourne. I'm here at the moment, so.
All the way from Melbourne.
Yes, so I'm chilling at home.
Okay, what did you get? Something positive you got out of it, being at home?
I don't have to feel bad about not going to lectures, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know. Get to see you, Rav.
That's good. Okay, very good. Yonatella there. I'm struggling here with the reading. You getting out of it? Okay, caring for one another. Very good. Who's this? Okay, it's not always what God wants. Good. Okay, I want to share with you what I think is very important to take out of this. It's a little bit around what Emma was saying. But I'll start off with myself, and then we'll try and develop it for everyone in the shir. I mean, I go to shul every day, and I daven with a minyan usually. And suddenly, and I sit down and learn with the students. Whoever wants to learn, more than welcome at any time to come in and learn with me. I learn with quite a bit of students one-on-one, see them, quite a bit of that happening. And there's coffee there, there's biscuits there, we can have whenever we want. We just sit and we learn. The place is clean and nice and quiet. And suddenly, that has stopped. It's put on hold. In fact, there's nowhere for me to go and sit and learn with a student. All the shuls are closed. The Sifrei Torah are left inside the Aron Kodesh. The Sidurim are left on the shelves. No one's been opening those Sidurim. The Chumashim are not going to be used. Pesach, there's not going to be any Yom Tov davening. Believe it or not, there's not going to be any Yom Tov davening. Now, this is around the world. Even in Israel, the most fanatic already have given up, and they're already davening on as individuals. There's not going to be Sifrei Torah open throughout Yom Tov to read the portion of the coming out of Egypt and so on. So there's the Sfarim in the shuls are not being used. No one's opening any Gemara or any Mishnah or any Mussar Sefer. It's all closed on the shelves. And the chairs are left empty already for days, weeks. And we don't know how long this is going to go on for. That's the negative. Right? It sounds negative. But what I started realizing is that we live in an extremely privileged time. And we have to really appreciate that. I mean, you have to understand, Jews could not go to shul whenever they want. They had to hide when they learned. They barely had Sfarim, books to learn from. They barely had Shiurim. They had to struggle. They had to fight for their Judaism. They had to fight for their religion on every turn and every twist of the way. Matzahs on Pesach that we all easily get. In fact, some Chabad people deliver it to our houses. Some used to be that you could barely get it. Now we get it delivered to our house by Chabad people that want to do some kiruv on us. So we have all this privilege of getting things, and we're receiving so much, and we have to realize that we live in a unbelievable privileged generation. And I think adding into that is what Izzy said and others, being with the family. It's to be with the family. Parents used to work till late hours of the night to provide for their family. Now they come home, they sit with their families. Most times we could have our family for dinner, but we get busy with the world. And this has put everything to a stop and to appreciation. So what I'm trying to take out of it in a positive level is to see my life not as a burden, but rather as a privilege. It's not a burden to visit your grandparents. Now you realize it's not a burden to visit your grandparents. It's a privilege to visit your grandparents. Your grandparents are there, and it's a privilege to go to them because right now you're not allowed near them. And maybe sometimes you felt it was a burden to visit them, but now you realize actually it's a privilege. And maybe you thought it's a burden to be at home for dinner and so on. Now you realize, no, it's a privilege to have food at home, to be at home, to be with our families. Our health, we shouldn't take for granted and so on. So I think what we have to realize from this experience is to be grateful and uplifted how lucky we are to live in this generation and how lucky we are with what's surrounding us. Doesn't matter if you're living in Melbourne or Sydney, you are extremely lucky. I know Sydney has a better view, but you're extremely lucky under the circumstance for everything you got. And I think that's something we have to dance about. We have to be excited that we're living in such a generation, and we have to take opportunity of that. Even with everything closing down, believe it or not, we can get onto Zoom and keep it learning and keep it going and make our day as productive as possible from home. And I think that's something we have to cherish and hold very tight to ourselves, that hopefully when we come out of this, and once things end with this corona, we still walk around with the understanding that this is a privilege, going to shul, being involved in shiurim, being involved with our family, visiting our grandparents, our uncles and cousins, and just connecting with other people. suddenly you start missing people, believe it or not. There used to be a headache. Oh, I have to see this person, I have to see that person. Now you start to miss people and you want to see people. And you want to hang out with 3 or 4 friends and just have a Corona beer, right? So now this is something I don't know if a Corona beer anymore. They might be out of business, but a different type of beer, right? So you want to do these things, and we have to realize how lucky we are that we had it and how much we should now work on making sure that it continues in our life and we don't, once things end, not take these things for granted. And this goes to everything everyone added. If it's family, if it's sleeping in, whatever it is, continue sleeping in. No, except that one. Don't continue sleeping in. Take advantage of what we got, and I think that makes it worthwhile and is worth productivity and so on. So that's my positive notes that I wanted to end off with in regards to this story. So just to summarize what we spoke about quickly, we start off with slander, making sure that we don't speak so much slander, trying to be careful with slander. Then we spoke about understanding, going to your parents. So no, people should not be taking this lightly. We should be taking this very seriously. And we said Zoom is an option under extreme circumstance. We explained what's the spirit of Shabbos. Why is it so important to have a spirit involved in Yom Tov and in Shabbos and so on? And we ended off with a positive note about Corona, making sure it's productive to our life, making sure we appreciate everything we got, take advantage of having these dinners with your family, take advantage of hanging out with your family and having them all around, they're all at home, and you can do productive things all together. So yeah, hopefully we can take advantage of that and keep the Sydney and Melbourne in touch, as Chelsea pointed out, seeing her friends and so on. Shkoyach, everyone, and hopefully we should hear only good news. Be'ezrat Hashem Yitbarach. Any questions? Izzy, you're welcome.
Thanks, Rav.
Thanks, Rav.
Okay.
Thanks so much. I have a question.
Okay, go for it. Anyone wants to leave is more than welcome. I won't get insulted.
What if you are on a Zoom call for a Seder, but the conversation just becomes so like not relevant that it could be like you could be talking about anything? Do you know what I mean?
What? If what? Again?
Like you're on a Zoom call with the vulnerable person on Pesach, and the conversation is just like talking about anything, like it's got no relevance to Pesach.
So what I would point out is that it shouldn't be that the Zoom is there and there's a conversation going on with them. I would say it's more the Zoom is there and they can participate in what's going on, but it shouldn't be that the Zoom turns into this, you sit down in front of it and you have the conversation. It's more kind of letting them participate in the Seder, and not that there's a whole dialogue going and there's a conversation. It's more that they feel part of what's going on and so on. So if they want to add something to what's going on, maybe you can take and listen, like you can listen and share it with everybody else, but shouldn't be turned into like, oh, let's entertain each other. That's what I feel. We should make sure that doesn't happen.
What about when you're eating the meal then? You're not allowed to talk to each other. When you're eating the meal, you're not allowed to talk to each other.
No, you're allowed to, but I don't think you should get up your chair and move to where the phone is and say, so are you, what's happening? How you doing? How you feeling? It should be more, Baba, what are you eating there? Is it good food? Good, but not to turn it into a whole discussion.
Interesting. Thanks.
Follow what I'm saying.
Rav.
Yes, easy.
Look what arrived.
Oh, Chelsea, you see that?
Best book ever.
By the way,
besides for you.
He's my long lost relative.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Where's the picture? Show us the picture. Also, Rabbi Lau, all this stuff about Zoom, I saw this article and it said at the top, Rabbi Lau says, no, do not listen to all this false advertising.
Rav, you had the
false advertising about what?
That because there were all these things on Facebook that like everyone should be on Zoom for Pesach, like that.
No, that's exactly right. Everyone has to ask a shaila, and it's not so simple. It's not pashut that it's mutter. It's very not simple that it's permitted. It depends on this.
Will you ever forget that I introduced you to Rabbi Lau as my rabbi?
Oh, unbelievable. Unbelievable. That was an opportunity.
Thanks, Rob.
I can't believe Sammy Knapp was on this and she didn't say hello.
Hi, Rob.
It's a disgrace.
I'm so sorry. I was busy listening. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Thanks, Rob.
Fine.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
shkoyach,
Have a
everybody.
good
Have a
day.
great day. Sorry I was late.
That was my favorite shiur you've done.
What?
That was my favorite one you've done.
Oh no, I'm better in Zoom than I'm in real, huh? Okay.
No, virtually.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, Rob. Thank you.
Bye.